Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. About the East stand out to me. 1, Duke. We knew they were going to be the number 1 seed. First of all, I'll say this. I mentioned this with Auburn. I know there's some recency bias. I think the committee made the right decision not making Duke the number 1 overall seed. Listen, it's been an incredible season. I'm not here to say Duke might not be the best team in college basketball. But at the same time, their resume is not better than Auburn's. I know they have the head-to-head win. I know Auburn's struggling, but it is a season-long thing. Duke has 9 wins in quad 1. Auburn has basically double that. But Duke does get to go to the East region. That's all they cared about. They're in Newark. They'll obviously play the winner of a play-in game. The 8-9 game is interesting. Mississippi State against Baylor. I'll be real. Both of these teams have been up and down this year. I'm not a Baylor guy. Edgecombe is unbelievable, but they have been up and down all year. Mississippi State, I think, to me, has kind of that athleticism that could give them fits. I think Mississippi State wins that game. Oregon and Liberty is kind of an interesting one. Oregon, by the way, sneaky resume. A ton of quad 1 wins out of conference, 24 wins overall, 8 seed in the Big Ten tournament. They beat Indiana. They played Michigan State tough just this past week in Indianapolis. They had a tough middle stretch of the season where they lost 6 in a row. They then proceeded to win 2, 4, 6, 7 games straight going into the Big Ten tournament. So they've been playing well. Remember, in November and December, remember what they did. They beat Texas A&M in November. They beat Alabama in November. They beat USC on the road to open Big Ten play. They have a lot of really good wins. They beat Maryland as well. So this is a battle-tested team. I think Liberty, though, is an interesting matchup because Liberty is one of those mid-major teams you want nothing to do with. 28-6 overall. They are a team that shoots the 3 ball exceptionally well, 39% from behind the 3-point arc. The issue is they're not very big, so that will be a game to monitor in that one because it's kind of a battle of styles. Oregon has much more size. Liberty can shoot the crap out of the ball. Arizona, Akron, listen, Arizona, I'll say this, they're going to Seattle. Obviously, the irony there, never forget, the irony there is a football coach at the University of Washington that they do not like. His name is Jed Fish. Listen, Arizona fans, be polite, be respectful. No eggs thrown at the house, no posting on social media. But I think they kind of knew that they could end up in Seattle, and that's where they'll be. Tell you what, they're playing a good Akron team. Akron won the MAC at the buzzer. Crazy story in the MAC, by the way. So John Groce, who is the coach of Akron, Travis Steele, the former Xavier coach, is his half-brother. Same mom, different dads. TMI, I know. They faced each other in the MAC championship game, and Akron basically won at the buzzer, okay? But at the same time, Akron is 28-6 overall. They started the season 6-4, so not great at math, but that means they're 22-2 in their last 24 games. I think that's a little bit of a tough draw for Arizona. So I think that's worth noting. Arizona would face Akron in round 1. Not an easy matchup. Arizona's been hot. Arizona's been cold. We've talked a lot about them. BYU versus VCU, bottom half of the bracket. We've talked a lot about BYU, okay? But we know they have to play the Thursday, Saturday regional. And what's interesting about it is that, one, they're playing on Thursday. They play the second game of the day, and they face VCU, who, again, played on Sunday in the final game of their conference championship game. So remember, we talk about it all the time. It's not, if you're in the tournament, it's not always the worst thing to be a team that loses in your conference tournament early. You don't want to lose too early. You don't want to go in on a negative whatever. But BYU loses on Friday. They get home probably late Friday, home all day Saturday, home all day Sunday. They got a short flight to Denver on Tuesday afternoon. VCU is going to get back to campus, probably 8, 9, 10 o'clock on Sunday night, having just played. They got to fly across country, play at altitude, which is another factor as well. By the way, I think everybody knows when I said BYU can't play on Sunday, that is because of the religion. No activities on Sunday. Wisconsin, I'll tell you this, credit Wisconsin, man. They make the run to the Big Ten tournament. They're kind of the reverse Michigan. It felt like they could be probably about a 4, 5, 6 seed. They get the 3 seed. They face Montana, the Big Sky champ. I watched a lot of Montana. They played a couple late night games over the course of the champ week. Good story. Travis DeCure is one of those guys that's been long overdue to get a coaching promotion. I don't know that they're really built to beat a Big Ten team. They lost by 31, to Oregon. They lost by, how about this, 35 to Tennessee earlier in the year. So Montana's a good story. I think that's a nice matchup for Wisconsin. That 7-10 St. Mary's Vandy game is very interesting, though. St. Mary's and Vandy. St. Mary's, super slow pace, all of that. Vandy's an interesting one. We talked a lot about them, right? We thought they were comfortably in the field. They proceed to lose their last 2 games of the regular season, then lose the conference tournament opener. I worried a little bit about if there was any chance that they would get in. They do get in. They are facing St. Mary's. St. Mary's wants to slow you down. They want to beat you up in the paint. St. Mary's, listen, we don't talk about a lot of teams being like really big and really physical in college basketball right now. Mitchell Saxon, 7'1". Polinas Mariskis, this was the kid that was at Arizona. He's about 6'8", 6'9". I actually think that's kind of a tough matchup for Vandy. By the way, if Vandy wins, we would get a third matchup of SEC teams in round 2, potentially. Because remember, we talked about this one earlier. We talked about the fact that in the West Regional, we could have a matchup of... Who was the first one that we talked about? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember. Anyway, we do know that Kentucky could potentially play Texas in round 2. We'll get to that one in a minute. Alabama, of course, could face Vandy in round 2. That would be an SEC on SEC matchup. The only other real takes that I have, I think Mississippi State could be a tough matchup for Duke because they're just as athletic, they're just as physical, and they don't back down. Now, Mississippi State has obviously been up and down since the start of conference play. They don't shoot the 3 ball well. I think that Mississippi State would be okay, but they're a great rebounding team. Again, super athletic. Keyshawn Murphy, Cameron Matthews. You go on and on down the list. I think they could give Duke a little bit of trouble. Oregon versus Arizona, obviously a former Pac-12 matchup. I think the big thing with Arizona, so hot and so cold, right? I mean, this is a team that won at BYU. This is a team that just beat Kansas in Kansas City, 20 minutes from the Kansas campus. This is a team that beat Texas Tech in the conference tournament. But this is also a team that struggled down the stretch. They lost at Kansas State. I know Kansas State was playing well, but kind of was up and down. So I'll be curious. Arizona's kind of a team. They have not played well in the tournament with Tommy Lloyd. We'll see if they can get right there. I'll tell you what, BYU, I think that this is a nice draw for them. Wisconsin is good. BYU, everything that Wisconsin does well, good guard play, good rebounding. BYU does the same. I could easily see BYU advancing as a 6 seed there. Wisconsin, to its credit, is really good. Tanji is a really good player. They rebound pretty well, but they're not bigger. They're not more athletic than BYU. So I could see BYU making a run there. Duke, I'll be real. I think Duke, if they can get by Mississippi State, I would like them against Arizona. A lot of things Arizona does well. I think Duke just does better. And then the question becomes, can somebody from the bottom half of that bracket beat them? I think the most obvious team is Alabama. Alabama's been up. Alabama's been down. The big story with Alabama, of course, is Grant Nelson. We find out that he hurts his knee. I saw Nate Oates say he only expects him to be out for 4 to 5 days, which would mean that he would be back for the opening rounds, potentially of the tournament, certainly the second round. But Alabama, I actually think it's a very nice draw. They destroyed Vandy earlier in the year. St. Mary's, they would beat St. Mary's by 20-plus points. Didn't they? They were supposed to play St. Mary's in round 2 last year. But I think Alabama's got a nice path to the Sweet 16. Also, if we get a BYU-Alabama game in the Sweet 16 in Newark, that's going to be like 115 to 110 a final score. I think Duke's got a pretty nice path. I think Alabama-BYU would be maybe the game of the tournament in the Sweet 16.